What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Recovery Rebellion. My name is Tara Grace. I go by Burn the Stigma on social media. And today I have one of my favorite people on social media. And the funny thing is that you'll never see Nadine making content, but you may know her as Skittles the Wonder Dog, right?
Yeah.
On TikTok, and she's super supportive of those who speak out about the program. I've known Nadine now in the social media world for years now, and I was super excited. I was like, "Hey, do you think maybe you'd be interested in coming on the podcast because you talk to so many people in the community that talk about this stuff?" And luckily, she said yes. So she's with us today. So Nadine, welcome, and let's just get right into it. What brought you to your first 12-step meeting?
Well, honestly, it was getting busted for growing marijuana and large quantity of marijuana, so to stay out of jail. But that said, like I did recognize that my use was completely out of control and there was a huge problem. So that was, I guess, kind of my push to go. And then going to seek help with the professional, like a doctor. Just that's what they recommend is go to AA, go to NA.
So when you first went, I know for me, like at first I was kind of like, this is kind of weird, but I bought right in because I just felt like I was so fucked up in the head that like nothing else explained my issues. But then when they started explaining the alcoholic and all of that stuff, I was like, this makes a lot of sense. Like it's kind of weird, but it actually makes a whole lot of sense and explains my whole life. And like, were you kind of like, what the hell is this shit? Or were you kind of in the middle, or were you sold?
I was super skeptical right off the bat. Like was not resonating with me at all. Like I just didn't feel that like something greater than me, let's just call it, it was God,
Mm-hmm.
um, could heal me or get to. I just didn't like believe in that. I didn't believe I was like powerless right off the bat either. I didn't, none of it really resonated with me, but I didn't know any better. So I just kept on going and kept on going. And that's what I started to believe, like there's something wrong with me actually. And I started to believe like it's my diseased brain talking and in denial. Well, I was told that. So slowly over time, even though I knew in my gut it wasn't sitting well with me, I just kept going. And slowly over time, I started buying what they were selling. And it was like looking back, it's really shocking because I am really like strong in self. And my dad always taught me to like think critically. I was brought up in like a major Bible Mormon belt, like so really religious. So my dad always taught me that like religion is a cult. It's not, just all those things. So it was kind of crazy to realize that I went against my beliefs, my values, myself, looking back. But at the time, I thought I was sick and I needed their help. And that's the way I was going to get better.
Yeah, and see, that's a profound part about it is that you went in skeptical. You went in with like I was raised, my mom watches this, hi mom, but like we were super Catholic, right? Church every Sunday. I was an altar girl. Like my mom was a CCD teacher, like it was so super God vibes all the way. Like I knew if I didn't believe in anything, I'm like, well, I know that at least there's a God, you know what I mean? Like all that type of stuff. So it was even easier for me at that point in time to get hooked in, I think, because my mom, I've been hearing about God since I was in, a baby carrier before I even knew what words were. So it's interesting how someone who didn't have a Christian background really at all was warned even about how like this type of thinking can just put these kind of blockers on you. And because you're told when you go to get help, like you're made to believe, well, maybe I can't trust my thinking. Maybe I don't know what's better for myself. And you hear it over and over and over again that even someone with those coming in with those type of beliefs was able to get swept up into it.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's mind blowing looking back. But was also, it took me a while to forgive myself and to accept it. Like I was in a really vulnerable place. I was really like hurting inside and desperate. Like I was
Yeah.
serious, I was desperate to change, and I was just looking for that help. And just slowly, it's weird, I would like go and I knew it like wasn't right and I'd leave and I'd fall, of course, like every, or I'd relapse and be like, well, I better just make this worthwhile. And I always went back, like I did, like big book studies, I did multiple steps, groups, and just thinking like, okay, this time when I go back, I'm going to give it my all this time and I'm going to do everything, and thinking that last time when I failed, it was because I didn't do everything. I didn't give it my all. And it really just created like this self-doubt, like this hopelessness in me that I never had before, weirdly enough. Like it was, I was always had like some, good self-worth and like all those types of things and confidence. So it was interesting to look back and reflect and watch me lose myself in the program. The exact opposite of what I needed.
Right. Right. And, it's funny because like for me, I always had low self-esteem, and the program just magnified that. When like you said, I mean, you go in and like that desperation. It's like now when I think about it, they talk about the gift of desperation. It's a gift
Mm,
for the program, not for us, right? It's a curse for
100%.
us. I'm gonna pray harder. I'm gonna surrender more. I'm gonna read more of my big book. I'm gonna do more 10, 11, and 12. Like every time I went back, by the end, I had like a commitment almost every night, like to carry the message at like a detox or a treatment center or whatever, because I thought that's what I had to do. Like every time it's like as I'm not giving enough of myself, and till you get to the point where you have none of yourself left to give, you know?
Oh yeah, I call it the recovery burnout. It is real.
Yes.
Yes, like one of the best things I did for myself after I left was create a life outside of recovery and outside of my past. It just was the best thing I could do for myself, really. It's not that I like stopped my like healing journey and growing and all those types of things, but I just felt like really that self identity as an addict limited my growth, right? Like that's not who I am. I'm so much more than that. And it really stunted my growing to hold on to that identity.
Yeah, no, I totally relate because it's like you paint this picture of yourself as the addict, and there's so many of these qualities that whether you have them or not, you kind of adapt because that's who they tell you who you are. And you're like, if and when you're in this echo chamber of everyone saying the same shit, so of course you buy in. And then sometimes it's like, was I that person at that time, or did I become that person at that time? It's like I don't know.
Yeah, like just to talk like the character defects, right? Like I didn't have a lot of those things that they were saying that like every addict has. I really, I obviously I lied sometimes. I stole sometimes. Like I wasn't a perfect person. I'm not saying that, but I wasn't a shitty person. Like I was a hurting person, and just the desperation of being dope sick made me do some things that are out of my character, but it wasn't who I was. And just that like really fucked with me. Like in treatment, I had to write out 50 character defects. Like
Holy
who has
shit.
50 character defects? Like how is that helpful? Like the shit I was pulling out of my ass just to put down. Because of course we had to finish all 12 steps before we got like phone privileges. So yeah, it was just the reflection of looking back is it's really actually it's sad. It actually makes me sad for people and
Yeah.
for myself, right? Like it was, I went for help and got sold a lie, and it was tough to accept. And then like when I left almost 15 years ago, there wasn't like this community and people speaking out, and so it was really lonely. It was scary. And I was just really, really privileged and lucky to have the support of my family who trusted in me,
Mm.
and my partner who has stuck by me for 25 years through, like, he's not in addiction, but has stuck by me, never wavered once. Um, to him, that he just like knew I'd get it one day. It's so much, he had more faith in me than I had in myself, So I get that I was privileged in that way that I did have that support. But it would have made things so much easier to have people like you and Rainey and Matt and Collie and stuff like that to say like, hey, I'm not crazy. I'm not just being defiant. But it was always just, you're so defiant. You always want to go against the grain. That's the addict in you.
Yeah, right. Terminally unique. Oh, you're different. You're gonna do it a different way. It's like it's just it's so crazy. So when you left, right? Like was there like kind of a nail in the coffin, or did you just sort of like phase out, or were there different things that kind of happened that finally one day you were like, fuck this, I'm never coming back?
Yeah, it was a definitely like huge accumulation, but just constantly failing.
Mm.
Like I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. And I just had this kind of epiphany one day that's like, well, why don't I try something different? Like, oh, imagine that. Right. But it just was kind of, I'd done so much work, even just like outside of the program with like a counselor and just on my like grief and trauma and stuff like that, that I kind of realized that that wasn't what I needed, and I just abruptly left. I didn't have to. I didn't wasn't too committed at the time, like my last time going back. But yeah, just realizing like I need to try something different. I had nothing to lose.
Right,
I had nothing to lose at the time. It's like
right.
I'm just gonna try something different, and literally said to myself, I'm gonna do the opposite of what I've been taught. Like literally said that to myself. Like I quit counting days. I started looking at things at like percentages. So like if I used 4 times in that month, 30 days, like that was a huge win. I was doing 30 out of 30 before. When just really honoring just myself and giving myself some major self-compassion, unconditional radical love, and just the opposite of what I was getting at AA and NA.
Was that hard for you after like all of that thinking? Was it hard to do that with yourself? Did you think like, am I lying to myself? Am I manipulating myself?
It definitely was at first. Because I had so much self-doubt all of a sudden, and I like, do I know what I know? Am I just because I am kind of a bit of like a defiant person to go against the grain. So I was like, is this me just being a rebel? But I needed to stay true to myself. Like that's what I kept on saying. Like it took me a long time to get where I am, but I feel that like we know ourselves best. We can trust ourselves. And I just needed to get to like that place again. It's easy for me to say these hard lines now, but back then, it was a lot of like trial and error. It wasn't just as easy as I kind of sometimes portray, like, because it's been so long, like such a space
Right.
that it's not as prevalent as like, well, I just left and I just quit, just did the opposite. But there was a lot in between for sure.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I think we really have to, because like part of me is like, let people find out their own information type of situation. But at the same time, it's like that disease model, having the thought, like you would not have been able to think that if you thought that you had a diseased brain, right? If you thought that you couldn't trust yourself, then you wouldn't be able to trust yourself. And I think that is one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle is learning to trust yourself, but it is the complete opposite of what most places when you go to get help are going to teach you. They're going to teach you that you can't trust yourself.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's always your disease talking, always that diseased brain talking, which, like I had a hard time with the disease model because when, like about, I, a year after in and out of the program, relapse after relapse, I got prescribed methadone. And just one day I was like, how am I responsibly taking an opiate, which is like my drug of choice, technically? Like, how am I taking it responsibly daily? And it's not setting off this allergy. So it was kind of a little bit of an epiphany going on methadone that why aren't I, and then also like another reason the program never resonated with me too is because I was never 100% abstinent. I totally used cannabis in the beginning, utilized it for, coming off of drugs just to take the edge off. Just just to get, another day under my belt or whatever it was. So I was never, and I had a lot of shame around that when I was in the program, even though I knew it was working for me and it was helping me, but I still like had this shame around it and also started doubting myself, like, is that why I'm relapsing? Because I'm not
Mm.
100% abstinent. Because people would always tell me, like, oh, it's going to lead to the people that I wouldn't trust in telling, it's like, oh, you're just trading one drug for another. Oh, it's going to make you relapse back on heroin. And
Yeah.
so it was so much trial and error. Like looking back when I talk about it, because I don't talk about my story like this that much anymore, that I've like haven't been working in the treatment field for a good 5 years now too. So it's kind of interesting to look back at how that went down.
It's so interesting to look back now without that like disease model like lenses, right? Like and like really trying to make sense of what actually was happened and not this like story that I've told myself, my AA story that I like there were so many things that I'm like, is that even true? Like was I really just like trying to numb myself? I don't ever remember like wanting to numb myself. I think that was just like this narrative that, like you use drugs to numb your feelings and like all this stuff. I was like, I feel like I was just using drugs to like feel better and feel, something better, not numb myself, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I just wanted some relief. I just wanted to feel better. Yeah, like I personally started using, like, I had some traumatic events. I don't think I used because of trauma. I think I used because of like lack of coping skills, lack of emotional regulation skills, just those types of things. It wasn't the trauma itself, it was the lack of things after that, and then just avoidance, like after that traumatic event. I just lived in a lot of fear, anxiety, just this dreadful feeling of something bad gonna happen. So I did like a ton of drinking and partying and other types of drugs, but until I found heroin, that was like oh, like
Yeah.
I literally felt like I could actually take on the world.
Yeah.
And I just ran with it. I didn't really know much about addiction at the time. I didn't know about like physical dependence and stuff like that. I was doing it about a year, and I went back home at Christmas, and I just didn't bring any because I mean, obviously I was physically addicted, but anyway, so I didn't bring any. And then I like got these flu-like symptoms,
Mm.
but I didn't even dawn on me totally at the time what it was until I came home back to Vancouver and got some and felt like instant relief. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm in trouble. I'm in
Yeah.
trouble. But didn't stop, of course.
No, of course not.
Kept going, here, another 10 years. Why not?
Fuck it. Yeah, it's so different trying to go back and like make real sense and it's just everything that I used to think about my story almost like isn't really or wasn't my real relationship with drugs. Like it really was helping me even though it was hurting me in a lot of ways. It was helping me in the way that I needed at that point in time and that
Mm-hmm.
was to feel better. Like yes, I was completely destroying everything else around me at that time but inside, it was the one thing like making me feel okay. But I
Yeah.
framed it so different because I was told it was all of this other shit that addict story.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely. I think that if I could have gotten the proper help in the first place, it wouldn't have prolonged for so long. Like if it wasn't treated as my diseased brain, and especially like the threefold disease model, I think that I could have, yeah, my story would have been different, but it is what it is.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully now with more people, there's more truth out there than there was, 15 years ago, like when, we were ripping and running and but still the if people are going to treatment, they're getting that disease model narrative.
100%, 100%. It's yeah, it was so frustrating. I got so burnt out working in the treatment industry, but because by the time I started working there, I didn't believe in any of the AA stuff. So I thought I was gonna like save the treatment industry and all the girls there and like let them know they don't need this to recover and they don't need that to recover. But it was such a fight. It was so frustrating that I got burnt out just constantly fighting, like just the staff, the professionals, I almost felt like I was going crazy. I was like, am I the crazy one?
It's so sad because I feel like there have been so many people who have gone into the treatment industry with hopes of being that change, making that
Mm-hmm.
change, and then they just get either burnt out or ran out because nobody else is on board with that change.
Yeah. Yeah. I could recognize, I knew I couldn't like do anything for people. Like I knew everybody, it needed to come from within them, but I still thought that I could at least show them that you don't need to do A, B, and C, and you can do your A, B, and C. But yeah, I know I did help some people in that, but then at the same time, yeah, it was more trouble than help for most
I
people.
was gonna ask, did you like ever get written up or in trouble for speaking that way?
I didn't. I worked at this wicked place that it was 12-step based, but the owner recognized that not everybody did need that. And so I didn't sit and like completely shit talk the program and stuff like that. I would just let people know you don't need a belief in a higher power or God. Like you don't need to go to AA to recover. Find something else. There are alternatives. You don't even necessarily need a program of any sort to like heal and move forward. So I actually didn't. But that said, she did make me like go back because what I would when I would do stuff with the girls, like go back and learn all that stuff again and like almost reindoctrinate myself again because I couldn't wrap my head around it because I had done so much deprogramming that it just none of it resonated with me. It was just so hokey to read and look back at. And then taking the women's to meetings, I knew it had harmed me, but once I started taking women to meetings for those 5 years, twice a week, I realized how fucking toxic it
Mm.
is. And just how, like, I mean, obviously my perspective, but just how gross it really was and how harmful it really was. And that's when I started speaking more like negatively about it rather than just like, well, it wasn't a good fit for me. It's like, no, actually, it's fucking harmful to many people. And so that's what really like kind of set fire under my ass to like speak out about the harms of it, not just it wasn't a good fit for me. It actually can be really harmful.
It's so funny that you say that because when I first started speaking about it, that's the stance I came from was the it wasn't a good fit for me. There's multiple ways to recover, blah 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 blah. But then like the more that I learned that my experience, because I thought I was rare. I knew there was other people the program didn't work
Mm-hmm.
for, but I thought overwhelming majority it did work for and that it worked if you really worked it and like you were talking about earlier that there was something wrong with me that it didn't fit, but it was still okay because I was still doing all right at that time. And so, I just came with that kind of perspective of there's multiple ways to recover. Well, then I educated myself more. People further along in the process, recommended information and such. And then I was like, no, no, no. This isn't just like like there's multiple pathways. It's like, this is fucking harmful as fuck. This is killing people. And the fact
Mm-hmm.
that everything recovery culture wise is based off of this shit is insanity.
Yes. Yeah. Like you say many times, you're fine with it being an option. Like, I don't give a shit if it's an option, keep your meetings. But the way it's like, yeah, just in every, just from the medical field to society to the treatment industry, just it's so blanket across the board. It's gross. And it's fucking lazy on the treatment industry's part to have that as a base to their program. It's fucking lazy and it pisses me off.
It's lazy and it's so cost efficient for them, right? Because
Oh,
they can
yeah.
just hire people who just work the steps. Like, I know you were working in treatment. When you were working in treatment, were you exposed to any harm reduction, like supplies or principles, or like when did you first start getting into that space?
Yeah, so this is actually something that I rarely talk about because it's still painful for me. So Vancouver's had harm reduction for over 2 decades. Like it's always been there, it's been around. I personally didn't utilize it when I was in my chaotic use, but I've always known it's there and stuff like that. And then about 6.5 years ago, my brother passed away.
Mm.
And so that fucking rocked me. Like it shook me to my core to the point where I knew that I wasn't going to be able to handle this sober. And so I completely went back and returned to use. This is something like I rarely talk about it because there's like that tiny part of me that has that shame of like you relapsed.
Mm.
But I didn't. I consciously returned to use because I knew I couldn't go back home and plan my best friend, my brother, my father figure's funeral. Like
Mm.
it rocked me. So I knew like a few people in Vancouver. I don't know if you've ever heard of DOLF, the Drug Users Liberation Front.
Mm-mm.
So they would sometimes, so this was in 2019. So I knew fentanyl was around. So they kind of ran like a compassion club for a clean supply, a little bit underground. And there was also at that time safer supply in Vancouver. So like luckily enough, I had a little bit of access to a bit of a safer supply. So I kind of, well, not kind of, I absolutely just returned to use as safely as I could. I knew I wouldn't stay there. I knew I wouldn't keep, because at this point, I think I was like 10 years of like no opiates. Besides when I had like my gallstone issue. But anyways, so I knew it was there. And then I also just knew that I needed to fight for, you know, so my brother is what had happened is he was in the pen for 3 years, got out and like stayed clean and sober, stayed off drugs for I'd say like about a year and a half. I have no idea what made him choose to pick up that day. I don't know what happened, but he overdosed. And so that's what I just thought, like, I need to do something different. And like just the whole treatment thing isn't working. And we need to, especially with the supply, start focusing on harm reduction. And so I went on a mental health leave from the treatment industry and then took about a year and a half off. And then that's when I started working in harm reduction.
You were exposed to it even when you weren't utilizing it. It was still
Yeah.
something you knew about.
Yeah, it was always something that was around. It wasn't as talked about as it is now since the fentanyl crisis came in. You know, I mean, it was always around, but it was more like just in Vancouver. Now it's in like all the suburbs and all like all a lot more prevalent.
Did you like ever think before you did the safe supply and stuff, when you were using or even when you first got into the treatment industry, did you ever like look at it as kind of, enabling people, or did you always have a positive look at it?
Yeah, no, I've always like thought it was awesome. Like
Good.
just from the standpoint of that I had such a limited, thought, like knowledge of it, of just that stopping even any diseases, just like any of those types of things. I didn't think of it enabling because I know for me, like if I didn't have money or whatever, like I found a way. So it really didn't matter whether something was there or not. It was happening. So
Yes.
I kind of just logically could look at it. And then I technically, at the time, to figure, and I say this as somebody who was on methadone, it is technically like a safer supply. It was a dose that I took every single day. I knew what it was. I knew how much I was getting. So like I kind of just looked at it like that.
Yeah. Do you guys still have that now?
Methadone.
No, sorry, not methadone. The safe supply thing that you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Dolph, the government finally did raid them, and like it'll be 2 years in November, so they're not around anymore. But we do have safer supplies, so it's usually like Dilaudid, hydromorphs, like those types of things, which like to, I don't like talking poorly of harm reduction because it drives the harm reduction community fucking crazy. But I see the extreme. Okay, anyway, so I'll get back to that. So the safer supply would have been awesome when it was heroin, right? But
Yeah.
now it's not heroin anymore. It's fentanyl with, as you know, a million other additives in it. So somebody getting prescribed Cadian and Dilaudid for a fentanyl problem, it doesn't even do anything really. It might just kind of take somebody's edge off sickness, but yeah, so there are a very limited few people that are prescribed pharmaceutical fentanyl in Vancouver, but it's pretty hard to get on. But so, like, big changes need to be made,
Yeah.
within the harm reduction as well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm starting to, after, about 5 years in it now, starting to, I don't want to say get jaded to it, but just starting to see the cracks in the system, especially that, like, in the States, it's mostly kind of like grassroots people, and like ours is done by our health authority. So it's done by the government. So it's done by people that really don't really, I mean, all the workers, most of the workers really know what's going on, but all the funding and policies and stuff like that come from our health authority. So that's just super frustrating in itself, working with the health authority.
It's like, they're doing something, right? But it's almost like we're not there anymore. If the illicit supply is going to just, continue to be the rampant thing that's everywhere, and there's very little access to, the safe supply. It's almost kind of like dangling a carrot, and not
Yeah.
not really. Like, it's, of course, I think it's great. It's more than what we have here. But again, I mean, is it, you know what I mean? If you're half-assing it, is it,
Mm-hmm.
are you kind of just doing, and this is not me talking shit. It's just kind of just thinking out loud. It's kind of like one of those things. It's like doing it to say you're doing it, but then not really doing it enough to like actually have people benefit from it?
That's exactly how I'm feeling right now. Like, I'm just feeling really discouraged, because just like, for one, just the stats here is only 4% of people that have opiate use disorder even have access to safer supply. So there's that, but then the safer supply that we have is actually not really cutting it either. And so yeah, there's so many cracks within this as well. And then just the half-assed approach of decriminalization, like, it was good, but it doesn't change the supply. So people got super jaded. It's like, see, decriminalized it. It didn't help. It did nothing. It did nothing. Yeah, it kind of didn't. And then is what made it worse is it made people not scared to use in public because their drugs weren't going to get taken. So then all the, we call them NIMBYs here. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Not in my
Yep.
backyard. Okay. People are, like, there's drug use everywhere. And there is, it honestly, like, I hate to even say this, but decriminalization made it kind of worse. It didn't make drug use worse, but it made it just more, this might not be the right word, but like sloppy. People don't care anymore. And they will just like use anywhere and in stairwells and with their kids and stuff like that. And it really pisses people off. And I do see it from that perspective as well. But at the same time, it's yeah, there's just so much change that needs to happen within it. And I just like, my hope is one day that I will see things be regulated and legalized. Like, honestly, I just feel at this point that's the only way that things are going to change.
No, 100%. And I can totally relate to what you're saying about the more public drug use, because right by where I work, it's not like officially decriminalized, but
Mm-hmm.
people are just like, can just use all out in the open. There's a lot of resources down there as well. It attracts a lot of people. And again, when you can just use in front of whoever and it doesn't matter. And then when I started working there, now I'm seeing we have like people who will take a shit in the back of some of our trucks.
Yeah.
There's condoms all over our parking lot. There's needles everywhere. Like my dog goes and like, is stepping in all the piss and the shit of humans, not
Mm-hmm.
dogs. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
human waste. It's like, okay, like I can understand when you're a business and you have customers who don't even want to come to your place of business anymore because they don't want to have to hopscotch over people to get to your front
Mm-hmm.
door. And this is someone who completely like I understand why the situation is what it is, but it's like this is not helping. Once the government kind of gets involved or kind of takes a hands-off approach and disguises it as a more humane thing, they're almost making it worse and they're making the people who can't get on who like right now can't get on board, they're making it even less likely to get on board because now their kids are having to watch people shoot up and such. Like I sympathize with it too, 100%. And it's so frustrating because it's these half-ass approaches to like say that you're doing something
Totally.
and you're making the situation worse, like you're making less people, because like you said, people say, see, that harm reduction shit doesn't work, we got it
Mm-hmm.
all over here. Look, this is your harm reduction, this is what you want the country to look
Yeah.
like, all that shit. And it's like, no, this is not harm reduction, this is not it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that's not what it's about. And then I also noticed, like, so BC declared it a public health emergency in 2016, so 9 years ago, and they just like majorly ramped up harm reduction, took away other resources, and it's just it's quite frankly, honestly, a shit show. It really is. So I run the mobile harm reduction and drug checking program, and we have no resources to even, if somebody like did want, not necessarily help to like quit necessarily, but just any resources for help, there really is none. And then even if somebody did want to, like, let's say, go to detox, it's like a 3 week wait even to get into detox, 2 3 month wait to get into treatment. So they put so much into the harm reduction and then not the like treatment. So yeah, there's not really any resources out there anymore. And then all the like SROs, the single room occupancy places, just lost so much funding. So then they're not properly staffed. So they're just getting, just the buildings are so run down, fires happening, and it's just, yeah. So it's so I kind of like seen from like one extreme to like the other of too much, like just keep them alive, which obviously is the purpose, but it's like literally just keep them alive, which to me I don't think is good enough.
100%. And it's such a prickly conversation, you know what I mean? Because like you were saying before, you don't want to, emotions are so heightened around this topic, like such
Mm-hmm.
opposing sides. And then it's like you don't want to say anything that's gonna people say like, yep, that's right, that harm reduction stuff, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. You're right. You said it, blah blah blah. You don't want to give them any of that ammunition.
Totally.
But you also got to be realistic about it too. And it's like if we really want to make a change and we really like want to help people, we got to be realistic about what is really going on,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah, like look at the cracks instead of just like clapping for the illusion of it. Like it's like the way harm reduction was done, 10, 15 years ago was, I feel like, the proper way. Now it's just it's yeah, anyways, I don't even want to shit talk it anymore.
I know,
But
I know.
it's obviously
I
really probably I work in the field, right? So I see a lot of things that I don't want to see, and then just working with the health authority, it's just so yeah, I don't want to sit and shit talk it, but I see some cracks in it,
yeah,
and people don't like to hear it. So
no.
I am for harm reduction. Like I
Mm,
utilized harm reduction. Like as far as using cannabis, I feel like that's it was harm reduction at the time.
yeah, absolutely. I am 100% all in with harm reduction, with all of the harm reduction principles included, not just like picking and choosing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think the whole thing is what makes the most sense to me, not
Yeah.
cherry picking to say that, oh, like, we practice harm reduction over here. Well, some of it you do, but others you don't. But we're gonna shift gears a little bit. What is something that you used to believe about recovery that you just don't believe anymore?
A few things. So the community thing, I used to think like, oh, you have to have community for recovery and, the connection and stuff like that to other people. And I used to believe that. And I believe that, like, obviously having a good couple of core people is like helpful, but what I needed was like a connection with myself. It wasn't necessarily with other people with things. I needed a connection with myself. So I used to think like that I just needed that community and that connection with people. Also just like, I think the like one addict helping another, like, I'm now that I'm better, I'm obligated to go help. That's how I'm gonna stay where I am. And so I think that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're not obligated to go help other people once we heal or recover. And quite frankly, most people fucking shouldn't. And I'm not saying I have any business doing it, but most people have no business helping somebody else. And that's just
Spot on, dude. The same thing with me about community, because I too thought like community was a big part of it. But honestly, the community part burnt me out. It was the
mm-hmm.
community part that kind of drove me out as well. And I'm like a super homebody. Like I was just kind of like me and my husband, like being social is just
Yeah.
not really my thing. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like it. And I used to think that that was bad, like, oh, I'm isolating. Oh, like I gotta be involved with
Yes.
other women and like all this stuff. And it's like, but that is what used to drive me batshit crazy, was like always having to pick up the phone, always having to
Mm-hmm.
respond, always having to like be on call almost. That is what, like, that on top of a bunch of the other bullshit in there. But in terms of like what drained me the most was community. And like even now, like people have suggested like, oh, like you should make a deprogramming group or this kind of group or that. And it's like, to be 100% honest with you, I don't want to. I
Yeah.
don't want the community. Like I know that kind of like I like community like in the comments and like stuff like that. Like and
Mm-hmm.
talking with people like this. But there's just I feel like once you're like in this community, just like so much is like expected of you
Yeah.
automatically.
The pressure too, right? Just the
Yeah.
pressure of it. And yeah, and is what I needed more so was like, which really helped me was like purpose in life. As you know, like I love animals. So I started like volunteering at like the shelters and going to walk dogs and like clean out the cat pens and stuff like that. Just having like a little bit of purpose. This was long ago in the very beginning when I first left the recovery community. So just having a bit of purpose in life. Something kind of like excites me, gets me out of bed in the morning was helpful. And and like to talk about the isolation thing, when they would say like isolation's a slippery slope, like I needed that time with myself. Like I really needed that time because I was always kind of like outside of myself because I was like seeking validations from
Yeah.
others and stuff. So I just really needed to like kind of be an introvert and just like be with myself, get okay with being with myself. I used to not be able to sit with myself or in my own thoughts. So learning to do that. So like isolation was actually healing for me personally. I know that's not for everybody, but I needed to get that back and get back in touch with myself.
No, that's great. And I love that you brought that up because I just feel like community, even outside of 12 step, even in just online communities, everything is kind of about like community, and having a community is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there is a huge value in, like we said, everyone's different. Like what somebody else may need may be to be a big part of a community. That may be the most healing and helpful thing for them. But I think it is important for people to hear that if that's not your vibe, and if you think that you do need some time alone to learn to think for yourself, to learn yourself at all, to learn to trust yourself, all of those things, there's nothing wrong with that. When you can be honest with yourself and say, like, am I doing this to just whatever, insert whatever recovery culture would say, or is this
Mm-hmm.
something that I need to heal myself?
Yeah, definitely. Is what like oddly enough, this is kind of like a little off topic. What made me realize that is like after my brother passed away, it brought up like trauma that I thought I'd kind of dealt with because I watched might be too much, I don't know for the podcast, but when I was 12 years old, my dad had cancer and he started like bleeding profusely in front of me and died. And so it was a super traumatic experience.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought I had done like a lot of healing with it. And then after my brother passed away, it like really brought a lot of stuff up. And so I was desperate to heal. I was just in the lowest place in my life after like 10 years of being like in recovery. I don't consider myself in recovery, but I was at a 10-year mark. So I was like super desperate, and I met Justin, like NAD plus detox,
Oh yeah.
on NA as a cult on Facebook. And we just kind of like started chatting. And so like he helped me through a psilocybin journey. And I did so much healing through psilocybin. So it got me just super interested in like psychedelics and like what that can do for addiction and recovery and those types of things. And like, why aren't these things being utilized? And kind of checked out like my area, what there was, and stuff like that. So it was super interesting. So I've done a lot of healing through psilocybin. It really got me like connected with myself and know that like everything I need is within me. Like anything I need, I have it within me, and I just need to find it within me.
It's so interesting because I feel like in one way or another, like everyone who I've talked to, even when I talked to Dr. Stanton Peele, like kind of his perspective is just about getting more confident with yourself. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like just being okay with yourself, I think is the biggest part of the healing process, you
Def-
know?
yeah, and I think that came with like age as well. Like it is, it
Mm.
sounds so cliche,
But
yeah,
it's
but
true.
it's yeah, it's true, and I think that like it scares me for also like young people coming up that get like labeled with that like addiction and stuff like that, because I feel like a lot of younger people would simply just grow out of it in time, and I just it's and obviously like substance use disorders on like a spectrum, right? I'm not super down with the DSM vibe and stuff like that. I think there's like flaws, major flaws within that we just won't even get into. But I do recognize that addiction can be on a spectrum, and like sometimes it's just a lot of partying, and sometimes it's just what we need at the time. Like when I returned to use my after my brother passed away, I just needed that at the time. I just needed to check out, zone out of life for a little bit. It was just too much. It hurts me to see young people in going to, because like every on one of my routes, I pass this big like it's called the Alano Club, so it's like the AA and NA club here, and I drive by and I swear younger and younger and younger people are going, and it just like hurts my heart. Um, but I mean, everybody's got to go through their journey. But I just think it's a real disservice to label somebody that's young that might be just partying or whatever, who can whatever they're doing, to just label that. I just think it would be much better to work on like self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, emotional regulation skills, coping skills, purpose in life, like those types of things, rather than just be like, hey, you got a disease, you're fucked.
I mean, that is like the worst thing to tell someone who's like coming of age and growing into their adulthood is that, hey, you have this lifelong progressive disease. And like, yeah, if you don't stay on top of this shit, you're gonna end up dead or jail institutions in death and all that shit. I firmly believe that it should be illegal to label anyone under 25 with a lifelong disease of addiction. It's just, it's so, and there's myself, I was labeled that at 21. So many people get this label. And like you said, majority of people statistically we've seen do age out of it. But
Mm-hmm.
so many people are given this lifelong diagnosis and so many people take that for the rest of their life. So I have people at 14. They say they it's like do
Addictive personality.
all that shit,
Yeah, I
dude.
know. It's heartbreaking. Like, fact is, we know that like our brains aren't even developed till we're like
Right.
25. So how are you even? It's yeah, and then just the people I watched like at the treatment centers with mental health conditions and undiagnosed, untreated mental health conditions that were being treated for an addiction instead of their mental health, and it's yeah, there's just so many. I could just go on about that topic forever of just the shit that people just aren't being treated properly, really.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a service to people.
I really I think too that like severe substance use disorder, right? Like people that struggle with it for a long time, for many, many years. And actually, let me back up for 1 second. I don't want, because if anyone under 25 hears this and has gone through, I'm not saying that you can't have a substance use disorder at, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Mm-hmm.
You could absolutely can. But what
Yes.
I'm saying is that that doesn't mean because you had that during this, let's say it was 10 years long, whatever, during that period of your time from 14 to 24, that does not mean you are a lifelong diseased person that's going to constantly have that. And I just want to recognize that I do I and I know you do too. Like we're not trying to minimize your experience. We're just saying
Hmm.
it's
Well,
fucked up to be given that label for the rest of your fucking life. Yeah.
yes, yeah, the disease brain, especially too, like I don't really know, so I maybe shouldn't speak on it, but I believe like that 99% of people's brains too also do like fully heal and that rebuild like new neural pathways and neuroplasticity. So I just that lifelong disease thing is just such a disservice. And I'm not saying our brain chemistry doesn't change when we're using substances. I'm not denying that. But I also believe it heals and we're no longer, you know, that anymore.
Right. Right. We can change. Then I think that's the biggest message, right? Is that we can heal and we can move on and we don't have to be tied to some of the darkest moments of our past, or even for some people
Oh,
and substance use disorder for them wasn't even that dark, right? Like we just always automatically assume we always have this dark tale, and even my head always automatically goes there. I think that it's just insane when you really stop and think about it, how to think that every single person who struggles with like there has a chaotic relationship with substances is the exact same, has these same character defects, has this same shit, all suffers from this spiritual malady, all needs this, like, that's insane, but I believe that.
yeah.
So
It is. It's insanity. It is. I know it's, I laugh at myself some of the stuff I used to believe too. But you know, like I say, I was like vulnerable and desperate. Like you almost could have told me to try anything almost. Even I was willing. I was, yeah, I was open, honest, and willing.
And I think that's another thing that I always like to bring up too with people is that a majority of us, or so far, there hasn't been one person that I've talked to that when their experience with meetings was that they hated it from the jump and only went one time. And it seems that majority of people that I've spoken with, even if they didn't love it at first, there was a time that they gave it their all and believed in it. And that's why it's so frustrating when people always have these comments, oh, what, you go to two meetings and blah, blah, blah. Oh, but those of us who are speaking about this, whether we're doing it on video or in the comment section, we have real experience. Like, we loved that shit at one
Yeah,
point.
I was in that cult for like 5 years, on and off. But I mean, I dove in. Like I said, I was like big book studies, the H&I love that. Step groups. Like I've done multiple sets of steps. I probably don't know it as good as you, the program as good as you, but you know, I feel like I got the base of it to be at least be able to have an opinion on it.
Right, right. Oh my gosh, my head like hurts because I've just been like agreeing with everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes.
I know. I would vibe with you, super awesome.
Oh, Nadine, it's been such a pleasure. I can't even believe it's already been an hour, but I have had so much fun talking with you, and I would love to do it again. I mean, you're awesome. You've been super supportive. Like, if there is one person that I can always count on, it's you, and I really appreciate that.
I fucking appreciate you, man. Like I'll never forget just to, you know, because I still had, even like after leaving the cult like 10 years, I still had this like weird thing around like using cannabis. And so to like find you on Facebook fucking owning that, I was like, yeah, like this is my soul sister. And I don't like it lightly, but I was like, yeah, I like love that. Just to have the balls to throw that out there and do that. Like I super admire you. I love your approach and things. Like I just um you're definitely like my favorite creator. And
Mm.
I just, yeah, you've done so much for people. And I just like hope you continue. Your approach is just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And like I said, I've absolutely loved this time. And thank you guys so much for listening. And I'll see you guys next time.